So today I'm going to show you how to make some homemade marshmallow fondant. We're going to take some Crisco and just grease up your microwave safe bowl. And you want to use Crisco on everything that the marshmallow is going to be touching. So my spatula I'm going to be using as well. So grease it up good. And we're going to take 4 cups of miniature marshmallows. The larger marshmallows can work, but you have to microwave at smaller intervals, maybe 15 seconds at a time, 30 at the most. The miniature ones do work better though. You add 2 tablespoons of water. Just going to mix it up a little. I'm going to put it in the microwave for about 45 seconds to a minute to begin with. Okay, so I've microwaved this for just about a minute, and it's kind of depends on what power you have your microwave set on, and also on your microwave. So it should look wet and puffy like this. And what I do is you just kind of slap at it to break up the lumps with your spatula. Just going around and around. Once you get all the lumps broken up, just microwave a little bit more if there's still some lumps. It looks like there's a bit of lumps yet, and it still is looking a little bit lumpy. So I'm just going to throw it back in for maybe another 15 seconds. Okay, so I've heated it a little bit more. Just going to try and break up those lumps yet. You don't want any lumps in there. You want totally smooth. Now you do get like some air pockets in there that look kind of like lumps, but you can tell the difference once so you can see some of the air bubbles are popping there. If you just move it, you can see that they're air bubbles, not lumps. Now you can leave it at this if you want to make white fondant, or you can add, or if you want to do have lots of colors, but not a lot of any of them, then you just want to add the color once you've got the fondant mixed. Or if you want a lot of one, which is what I'm going to be doing now, you can add the color now, which is a lot easier to get at the color you want. There's Wilton gels that you can use. And this one is not my preferred one. I'm actually switching to Americolor for all of mine, but this one is just a paste. You know, just unscrew it and you take a toothpick, or sometimes if I need a lot, for like a batch like this, I will use a butter knife even. This is my preferred one now. Just flip and squirt. There you go, no mess. Now I'm doing sky blue, and keep in mind once you add the icing sugar here, it's going to be just a little bit lighter yet. If you're doing red or black, those are the most difficult colors to achieve, and it's just about impossible to achieve with just the gel colors. So what I like to actually do is use these candy melts for those colors. And I just do maybe, for a batch like this, probably about half a cup to 3/4 cup. And I just melt it in the saucepan on low. And I add that first. It'll give you a good base color. It won't give you the color that you want, but it'll give you a good base color. And then you can just add the gel color that you need, because with the red and the black especially, you don't want to use too much because they are the most bitter of all the colors. So if you add too much, you're going to have some pretty awful tasting fondant. Now the icing sugar, I don't actually measure it anymore, but it's about the same as the marshmallows. 4 cups is what you're going to use. I just add a bit. Whoops. And I just start off with enough to make it a little bit thicker, so it's not so runny and easier to work with when I get out on my surface here. It's going to be all lumpy with the icing sugar and not look good at all, but that's totally normal. At this stage anyway. Alright. Okay. So what some people do is they'll actually use the counter surface. I prefer not to because it's a lot of cleanup afterwards. I just put a little bit of Crisco on the counter and then use wax paper. The Crisco will actually help the wax paper to stick. I've already greased up my wax paper with Crisco here. So I'm just going to add some powdered sugar here. As I said, I'm not measuring it really anymore, so I kind of have an idea already of how much I need. But altogether what you'll use is maybe 4 cups. You probably have a little bit left over from that. And what I do is just make kind of a well, just so it doesn't go everywhere. And then I spoon it out into the well. It's going to be very, very sticky. Alright, so I've washed my hands again. There's lots of hand washing involved in this because you'll be greasing and needing clean hands and then greasing again. So now you want your hands really greased up well so that this is not going to stick to your hands so easily. And then I just start by folding it in with the icing sugar. Just keep folding. It's going to harden up as you do it. It's getting a lot firmer already. Now, the nice thing about this fondant, as opposed to the pre-rolled fondant that you can buy packaged by Wilton, and there's probably some others, those fondants, at least to me, and I think many others, just taste like wax. This fondant is a marshmallow fondant, so it tastes like marshmallows, which is a lot more pleasant than wax. And there's also another big benefit. It is a little more sticky to work with than the prepackaged fondant, but given the much better taste and the other big pro, the much, much, much cheaper cost. Because if you've ever looked at prepackaged fondant cost, you know what I'm talking about. The difference in cost is, like, for about this much is probably like $20. This is just icing sugar and marshmallows, so the actual cost of this is a couple dollars. If you're paying exorbitant prices, it might be $5. So it's getting a lot more firm now. It's still a little bit too stretchy, breaking too easily. So I'm just going to add some more icing sugar yet. Just keep working it in there. Now, what I realize not everyone does who makes marshmallow fondant, but what I find extremely helpful is adding some Crisco to the actual fondant. And the reason you want to add Crisco, in my opinion, is to make it, and this is about probably a tablespoon that I added to this size recipe, to make it more moist. And some people just add water, but then it gets more soft, and then if it gets too soft you gotta add more icing sugar and you still have the same problem. So What I noticed when I first started doing this, using this recipe without adding Crisco, is after I rolled it out, a lot of times, in fact actually pretty much every time I think, it would crack after I had it rolled out. And you don't want that. The whole purpose of using fondant is to have a nice clean looking cake. So you don't want it cracking everywhere. And this, it's making it more soft right now. You can see it's making more supple, but it's adding moisture and it's not going to crack as easily. So at this point, I just add a little bit more icing sugar, coat it with. Basically just coat it and then work it in there a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. And you'll get to know just how much you need as you get your own experience doing this. If it feels sticky, just add some more. There's your fondant. And the way that I package it is I just wrap it in saran wrap, and you can keep it in an airtight container, or I like to keep it in a freezer bag most of the time actually. And it does harden up a bit, but if you work it some, add a little bit of more Crisco, however much you need, you can get it nice and supple again. I like, if I'm covering a cake with it, if I have to roll it out and actually lift the whole thing up to cover it, I find it a lot easier to do it immediately after making the fondant. It's a nice and soft, easy to roll out. If you let it sit, and even if you've worked it some and it gets more supple, it does also break more easily. It cracks more easily. I find it better to let it sit for a while if I'm going to be making 3D objects that are not rolled thin, that I'm just shaping. But for actually covering the cake, I like to use it right away. Okay, so I've covered it with saran wrap. Even if you're just walking away for a minute or two, just cover it because it does dry out rather quickly. And now I can clean up my workspace, which is going to be pretty darn easy to do. Voila!